100% impossible to operate at 100% capacity all of the time. Something unforeseen will always happen.
I can see the whole wide world with these two eyes, and I can be whoever I want to be, 'cause it's my life.
Hi, thanks for joining us for another episode of Ask Spurrell CPA. Again, as the Edmonton Business Coach, we're talking about how operating at 100% capacity is a myth. So again, as the Edmonton Business Coach, we're talking about how operating at 100% capacity is a myth. I have Michael here with me again. Michael, what have you been learning since you started with us so far?
I've actually been learning a lot.
Yeah. How you've been learning about the content, hey?
Yeah, like the values and everything at the company. It's interesting and fun.
Interesting, cool. Yeah, so I have the quote here from Zig Ziglar, one of my favorite authors, and he says, "Getting knocked down in life is a given. Getting up and moving forward, however, is a choice." The statistic that we have are 50% of all Canadian businesses will go out of business in the first 5 years, and 29% of these failed businesses will list running out of cash as one of the primary reasons for their failure, making running out of cash as the second most common reason for business failure. And the story that we have here, business owners, they run out of cash because they planned on achieving a revenue number that was based on 100% of their capacity. So they come in with this model, they've done some projections on the revenue and expenses, but a lot of times that was based on 100% capacity. So Michael, what are the questions that these business owners should be asking?
If a business provides a service, is it possible to fill their calendar 100% of the time?
In my experience, when we start talking about long term, it is 100% impossible to operate at 100% capacity all of the time. Something unforeseen will always happen. Whether that's, customers canceling, or, if you have some sort of labor issues within the organization, or supply chain issues, or weather, or business owner gets sick, or scale, or the city starts tearing up the sidewalk outside and the customers can't park. It is 100% impossible in any business to operate at 100% capacity forever. Something will always go wrong to interfere with that.
If a business sells a product, will they sell out 100% of their product?
Yeah, same thing. So the first one is more about service industry. Can you fill your calendar all the time? But in the second one, if it's a product, you're never going to sell 100% of that product. Again, there'll be some sort of manufacturing issue. There'll be a deficiency. People will return stuff. Things will break in shipping. Like you'll never sell out of 100% of a product, just like you'll never fill 100% of the spots in a service-based time business.
Does it normally take days, weeks, months, or years to reach capacity?
Normally, it takes years to reach capacity. So, we see, people think, well, how long is it going to take to get to this 100% capacity? I want to sell out all my product, or I want to fill my calendar or my service-based business. It's not going to be days. It's likely not going to be weeks. It's likely not even going to be months. It's years before you're operating at that 100% capacity for whatever you have. If you have space or number of staff or employees, it's likely years before you start to get to that capacity number.
Do most business plans you see assume capacity too early?
Almost all the time. It is like without fail. We see business plans come in. Imagine they come in with a business plan for a restaurant, and the restaurant seats, the restaurant seats 100 people. And they think they can, have 80 seats filled at any given time. And they come in with this business plan. In September, they're doing the build out. In October, they're doing the build out. In November, they're hiring a staff. In December, they launch the restaurant. And then all of a sudden, December, in their projections, it's the revenue just goes from $0 to $100,000 a month. And that never happens. And then it stays at 100%. Again, it never happens. It's always 0, 0, 0, 0. Then the launch date happens, and then it's, 10,000 the first month, and then it's 20,000 the next month, and then it's or 10,000, and then it's 12,000 and 14,000 and 16,000 and 18,000, and they're going to get to that $100,000 a month. But it happens gradually after the start date. You never go from 0 to 60 on that. That's a very rare occurrence. It's certainly the exception, not the norm. And even if you do get to capacity, something happens and you scale back again anyways.
Is this why businesses often run out of cash in the first 5 years?
Yeah, usually it's from my experience, it's one of the very common reasons. So business owners, they do their homework, and they are, making an effort of them lots of the time. And they're doing some revenue projections, they're doing some expense projections, but normally that revenue projection that they have is completely out of line. Not that they can't get there, but just they underestimate the time that it's going to take to get there. So normally they have this huge growth potential, whether they're looking at, doubling the size of an existing business or starting from an at-scratch business, and the number that they're picking often won't be unreasonable. Just the time period that it's going to take to get there, to move that needle, is usually much longer than they consider.
Is it possible to maintain 100% capacity over the long term?
No, over the long term, no matter what, even if we slowly, gradually get up to that, there'll always be something. They'll get to that capacity. If you can produce 100 widgets a month, you might get to selling 100 widgets a month, and then one customer returns a bunch of them, or you break a bunch of them in production. You have a rental company, you get everything rented out, but then 3 months later, people don't need the stuff anymore. It's long term. It's never going to be 100% capacity. So you should always plan in those projections, something different, right?
Will the business owner's personal schedule often temporarily affect capacity?
Yeah, they start to act like they're never going to take time off. And when you're starting a business, you probably should think that I'm going to work, really long, really hard hours. I'm not going to be getting the same vacation time. But what if you get sick? What if someone has a baby? There's certain things that are going to affect that capacity on a personal level. You're not going to be a robot, right? And you're not going to run every single day, and that's sometimes going to affect the capacity. So again, it's one more number that, one more thing that you should be considering on why 100% capacity all the time is not possible.
Will staffing issues often temporarily affect capacity?
Almost all the time, unless you have a one-person business, unless the capacity is just you. One of those issues that's going to affect capacity is staffing. People are going to go on vacation. Some business owners will struggle to find the right people at the right times. Just because you get more work doesn't mean you might have the team ready to go in advance. And sometimes productivity of certain people will fall off at times. It's not linear in nation. It's not linear. Growth all the time. There's a little bit of curves and a little bit of ups and downs in the eventual trend of going up, but staffing issues is going to be one of those things where people aren't robots. It will be one of those uncertain things that you can do some things strategically to move the needle forward long term, but you certainly can't guarantee on that progress being linear.
Will customers' turnover often temporarily affect the ability to generate revenue?
Yeah, I always have clients, and they're excited, and it's hard for me sometimes to crush their dreams on this issue, but this always happens where they come in with a client. They have a couple of major clients, especially in some businesses, and they say, "Well, don't worry, they'll always buy." Business is tough. Even if they like you, they might have problems with their customers, right? So the customers are never forever, right? Mm-hmm. They'll scale. At times they'll want to purchase more. At times they'll want to purchase less. At times they'll want to fire you. And businesses come in to me and say that relationship will never change. They will always buy at least that. And it's a movie that I've seen over and over and over again. And they're usually right in the short term. Everything goes exactly how they tell me in the short term. But when I start looking out 2 years, 5 years, 10 years of what's happening, there's always some turnover in the customers. So no relationship is guaranteed forever, and it's a false assumption to consider that, and you shouldn't stake your business on that.
Should businesses always project revenue with less than 100% capacity?
Yeah, so when we look at the business plans that we assemble, we look at, eventually we look at what is that capacity. It's going to take a while to get to that capacity, and even on that scale up, we're never going to get here. We're just lying to ourselves as a business owner. Whether maybe it's 99% in some business they can operate at capacity. It's never 100. Maybe in other businesses it's 75% of capacity. Let's say you got a daycare and you have kids that sign up. But guess what? A family of 3 gets transferred. They pull all their kids out of daycare 1 month, and they have to move to Toronto because that's where the new job is. Guess what? You got a hole of 3 people, and maybe the person on your wait list can't fill it in time. So even when we do the projection, it's going to take a while to scale up to that level of productivity. And when you get there, we never go to 100% in a projection. I think it's a recipe for disaster, because even if you can get to that 100% capacity number, it is going to scale back down. So rather than trying to predict those scales up and those natural flows up and down, we always just pick a number that's in the middle of those fluctuations up and down. So you think about a restaurant, and you could get, there's 80 seats, and we're never going to get more than 70 seats filled in the dinner hour because something will happen. A water main will break. Clients' offices will flood. That's happened to us recently. But it's always going to be less than 100% capacity over the long term. So you should never plan to get to that capacity. You should always plan on getting to a percentage of your capacity in your business plan. And that percentage will depend on the individual business and the industry. So I think that's what we have here today. Thanks so much for joining us. As always, please hit the like and subscribe button so we continue to deliver you tips on how to beat the odds at business. And as always, look forward to any comments that you have below, so we can respond back and use your input for future videos. Thanks very much.